So one of the things I can remember quite strongly when I was in the middle of the dark night of the soul, if you like, and one of the things that kind of seemed to always grab me all the time was this feeling of being disconnected from people. So I would feel isolated, would feel lonely and alone, and all that kind of crushing stuff. At the time, it was crushing. Now I absolutely love being alone. Like genuinely, this you can find that it just takes a little bit of patience and a little bit of courage, if you like, to kind of go into those dark areas and be alone and stop distracting away from being alone. I can cover that a little bit later on, but I used to always have this feeling of being disconnected, and I remember for months walking around thinking, how am I ever going to find my way back? How am I ever going to feel like I fit in again? How am I ever going to kind of become the person I always was, but now with this new enlightenment that I thought I was going to be attaining at some point? And I say a lot enlightenment loosely there, guys, but I think a lot of us, when we enter the dark night of the soul and have spiritual awakening, we kind of can then chase after enlightenment, but it's the chasing after enlightenment that probably prevents us from ever finding it, because it's not something we will consciously understand. But that aside, I used to feel this disconnection, and this, during this feeling of disconnection, it would create a feeling of anger, of frustration, of a disappointment in myself as to why were the friends that I once had all throughout my life so superficial that now I find myself in a real dark place. I've got no one there that I feel like I could rely on. But of course, we have got people there that we can rely on. We haven't found them yet, because ultimately we haven't found ourselves yet. So if we haven't found ourselves yet, the people that we're surrounded by would be the old people that used to be surrounded by us when we used to turn up in a certain way to them. And the way we used to turn up to them would be in the vein of everything we'd ever been taught and told about ourselves, the story that we carried around with ourselves, and the fake egoic self. That was what used to present itself. So it wasn't that we didn't deserve to have people around us who understood us. It was that the image that we were giving off to the rest of the world created the world that then surrounded us. And so that's why at that point, when I would feel disconnected from everything around me, it was this disappointment in myself, until I come to the realization of everything I just said, until I come to that realization that it was neither the people's fault who were around me that I kind of felt a little bit maybe had neglected me, and it was neither my fault for not being adequate enough to have the people around me that I felt like other people had. I felt like everyone else seemed to have this great life and this great balance of having their friends, and they'd be cemented with their family, and they'd be cemented with their friendships. And then of course in the realization moment of no, they're not. They are where I was at when I was in the deep throes of the matrix, unconscious to the fact that probably most of the people that are surrounding them are also very similar to the type of people that's surrounding us. And once, of course, you change and you come out of that and you withdraw away from that whole process, you see the big picture for what all that big picture was. And then that's when you stop feeling so disconnected, because you come to the realization that any given person that you probably know, put them in the same situation as you, where the ego is stripped away, and they would feel disconnected. So it was in the belief that feeling everyone else is so well connected, if you like, that would make me feel extra disconnected. But of course I wasn't disconnected. I wasn't disconnected in the slightest. In fact, the only thing I was disconnected from my entire life, and probably most of you guys, was myself. I was never at home. I wouldn't be at home with me, because my home was wherever I placed my mind. And my mind was normally placed in a pub or the bottom of a beer can, getting drunk and laughing with people, thinking that I'm having fun. But of course, that's where my mind has gone. So with my mind, I've projected my image into that environment, and that's created the feeling of false security, of false connection. That makes sense, or did I go very deep there? I've kind of lost myself a little bit with that one. I know that it makes sense in my head, but as always, guys, I worry that I've not said things as I needed to say them. And I've got a very sore throat today as well, and an earache, so it's kind of annoying. But yeah, so I would feel, once I come to the realisation, that's what I'm saying, once I come to the realisation that I wasn't so disconnected from everyone, I then started to notice this other thing which gave me great comfort, was the feeling that I had at that moment whilst I was disconnected, so being in isolation and lonely, and that wasn't being lonely, that wasn't being disconnected, that was me being connected to the new me. But the new me was unfamiliar, which is why we get that feeling of, we feel lonely, but kind of feel like it's what we want to be doing. So we want to be isolated, but we kind of feel like it's wrong to be isolated and be alone. That's where I believe, for me, this is guys, that's where the feeling in me created this immense loneliness and this crushing disconnection and stuff, was the fact that I had connected to the new me, which is why I would always ask, how am I ever going to find my way back? But of course I don't want to go back. I just connected with myself, but the connection to myself was very, very unfamiliar. It's like, who is this guy? Who the heck is this guy? I have no idea who I am. However, there's something in that solitude, there's something in that disconnection that we, and I'm going to speak probably for most of you here, I hope that we all kind of like the disconnection, but there's just the ego voice that tells us it's wrong to be alone, because everything we've always done, every place we've ever gone is into a familiar territory where familiar faces are at, or familiar environments, familiar music playing in the background, familiar conversations, familiar dinners, restaurants, whatever, sexual partners even, whatever it might be. It was all familiar, but now we've disconnected ourselves. So it's not that we are disconnected, we've disconnected ourselves from our old ego self. Which is why, because I always had this trouble, and I was reading my journal earlier, I always had this trouble understanding what that disconnection feeling was until I got to a sentence. I should have actually brought it over, and mind you, I can't read as I'm talking anyway, so that'd be pointless. But it was kind of along the lines of, I'm only feeling disconnected because I have now connected with myself. And the feeling of being connected with myself has made me feel even more disconnected with the old ego self. The old ego self was with me for 45 years, leading my entire life. And now this new guy who I've just connected with is going to be taking the journey from here on in. And that made me feel disconnected, but also with that feeling of, I kind of like this solitude. But I hope that made sense to you. I don't know if I released this one because that seemed like it went all around the houses. To me, in my head, it seemed like it did. But it's a fascinating topic. And another thing I just want to point out with that, guys, of this feeling of not being at home, not feeling at home in our bodies. When we're totally concentrated, we're always told that to concentrate on something is a really good thing, which it is in some circumstances. We need to do that. But I think what's gone on with us sometimes as human beings is we've been so programmed into thinking that we need to focus on things, that we can focus in too much. And I think that when we go to work for 8, 9, 10 hours a day, or even then indulge in our hobbies or sit at home scrolling on the phone and stuff, our mind is constantly connected to something other than maybe what it should be connected to, which is nothingness. Even if the things that we're indulging in are things that we enjoy, we're still indulging in those things. I.e., so scrolling on the phone is still giving thousands of images in our head. that probably don't need to be there, but we might feel quite relaxed as we're doing it. But the relaxation is only because we've come away from the feeling that just sitting there with nothing on, no TV, no phone, no nothing, and just looking at the wall or looking out the window and not doing anything. Maybe that's where ultimately the human form wants to be, but we deny it that. And so we find the relaxation in coming away from the thing that we really should be doing, which is indulging in that whole kind of spiritual practice and being alone. Sorry guys, my throat really is sore. But, and even like when we're at work, we can be at work and we can be so focused in because we're dedicated to doing the job well and wanting to do the job well that we focus in on that. So our mind again is away from something. It's away from, it's somewhere else other than within. Our mind is on the computer screen, or I don't know if you're on a building site, it's in driving the crane or whatever it's doing. It's doing that thing. It's not at home. And I know, obviously, I'm aware we go to work and we do things like that and we live in that kind of world. And that's, so I'm not saying we need to try and be at home all the time. However, we actually can be. This is something I've got particularly good at, that even whilst I'm doing this, I'm kind of aware of my awareness. And the more that I kind of try and indulge in that, the more at home I feel all the time. And when I say at home, guys, I mean at home kind of in the physical body. So everything kind of comes back to here, and it feels good when you have that sense of security. But I hope that made sense about saying that when we're at the work part. It's so that we can understand why that maybe now we're in the dark night of the soul and the holy self is going, and we look at the matrix for all that it was and the damage that our conditioning has done, the generational beliefs, traditional beliefs, etc. And this is why we can create a strong feeling. And so maybe we don't want to go to work. We're thinking that maybe it's the actual job that we don't want to go to work for. But no, it's probably more a case of we don't want to put our minds back in that environment. If we kind of look deeply at that, it's the distraction away, our mind being distracted away, continuously doing something that we probably don't even enjoy. And therefore that takes us away from ourselves. And I think when we come to that realisation that that's how it is, and this is why I'm always saying we need to try and relax into the dark night of the soul and just accept the process for what it's doing, that it really is, you're being deprogrammed. You're being completely deprogrammed, and you're going to have a whole new life uploaded into you if you allow it to. And what the allow it to looks like is, don't keep questioning or this was certainly what I was doing anyway. And I know this to actually be true, that we let's not question it. Let's not question why we're feeling down. It's just feeling down is just part of human nature. It's just part of everything that goes on with us in our physical form. Everything that goes on within the physical form is part of nature. I've said it before in other videos. How are you making your heart beat? How are you making your lungs function? How are you making your hands move? How are you seeing? How are you watching me on this video? You're not. You don't know how you're doing that. You just know that you're doing it because your body is part of what nature and what the universe has created. Hence why we can follow signs from the universe and feel energies and vibrations. Once we start really learning and indulging that, that is what takes over our lives and starts leading us forward. And I know this because I'm personally experiencing this at the moment. Yet I'm still sitting here with what everyone would tell me is nothing. But I feel more fulfilled now than I ever have. I have to watch, obviously, normal stuff like finances, etc., stuff like that. I'm still here. I still have to eat, and I still have to pay for this caravan and stuff. But that will take care of itself. I could quickly avoid. I could avoid doing what I'm doing now and go to work and earn money. But then that kind of throws me back into that world and goes against the grain of everything I've just saying. So this is where I'm trusting the universe, because I am it. That when I'm sitting here and it doesn't maybe seem so great all the time, that it's like, this is where I'm meant to be. This is what I'm meant to be doing. Is feeling this, is staying here. I have so many people saying to me, Toby, you're nuts. You're nuts. You can't just do nothing. And I'm like, but I'm not doing that. I'm not doing nothing. I'm creating an entirely new life. But because me creating my entire new life is outside of the matrix, is outside of what everyone's normal conditioning way of seeing things would be, i.e. get your education, get the job, get the marriage, die, I'm doing it differently from that. Like I've said in other videos, I work at maintaining my life at minimum so I don't need to earn a lot. I would rather do that than go to work and work hard for someone else's life. Nothing wrong with the other people going to work and employers and stuff like that. I'm not saying that. That's just the way that I choose to live. And with doing that, I feel like I can give more back. I received an absolute ton of emails off my last video from you guys. I think it was about 29 of them, which is a lot because I'm still only a small channel. Yeah, and I will get round to replying to all of you. And those of you that have sent that in and you might be thinking that I've ignored you and replying to others, I'm honestly not. It's hard to get back to all of that and do these videos and reply to the comments in the actual videos that come along. But I will get round to it, just bear with me. But one thing I can promise you just on that note, I do read all of them. And I don't read them as I'm walking around making a cup of tea. No, I set a couple of hours aside and I sit down and I read them because it's important to me. It's important to me for me to understand the effect that I'm having on people. It's important because that is the ultimate thing, much more than finance, much more than material object. That is what gives me the sense of fulfillment and makes me feel for the first time in my life that I'm actually proud of something that I'm doing. Because I'm proud, not just because I do these videos, but because I allowed myself, whilst I was in the dark night of the soul, to not attach to the thoughts I was having. And to start really indulging in my woo-woo-ness, if you like, and start really enjoying the fact that I am actually that guy. And I had the courage to courage is probably the wrong word, I don't know another word, but had the courage, I can't think of another word, but had the courage to go down that route of just allowing it to happen, and what I was learning from videos and reading books and stuff, to take that in, absorb from it. And I gave myself a sense of purpose, and that sense of purpose was, I'm going to work this out. I'm going to work this dark night of the soul out. I'm going to get better, and then I'm going to put videos out. Or I didn't say that, but I said, I was saying to myself, and then I'm going to get the message out. And then it dawned on me later, do the videos, a good idea. And that sense of purpose was enough to kind of start making me feel a bit fulfilled. So, what was he talking about originally? I was disconnection. When did that tie up, that last part? I kind of guess it did tie in a little bit to how it is, because it does kind of bring us around in that full circle from feeling disconnected, that if we find that sense of purpose, which mine was finding the sense of purpose in doing these videos and uploading my experience of Dark Night of the Soul, has made me feel real connected. So I guess it did kind of work out. But hey, there you go. That's what happens when you just follow the energies of the universe and you working through your consciousness rather than your ego. And that's the beauty of it. But anyway, guys, I'm going to leave it there. I hope that was a little bit interesting. I'm kind of nervous about putting this one out, but I'm going to do it because you guys just always show me love. And if you've made it this far in the video, yet again, something's resonating with you. And that tells me more and more and more that sometimes maybe it's not just maybe it's not always the things that someone is saying that you're enjoying. Maybe it's actually the confusion that person is feeling kind of resonates with you a little bit there. I hope that bit made sense. I kind of knew what I meant. But anyway, guys, look, thank you to the last guys who come on from my last video. I had 18 new subscribers from that. So welcome, guys, and thank you. I appreciate you coming along. If you're new here and you're still watching this, then please hit like, please subscribe. It'd be awesome if you stick around as well. And to all my old subs who always comment and stuff like that, thank you guys so much. I love every single one of you, and I look forward to doing another video in the week. Oh, and my last video, I forgot to let you know what the weather was. Today is very hot, it's overcast, and I'm going to go for a walk up the river and go and have a cup of tea, and then I don't know. I never know what I'm doing next. But anyway, guys, I love every one of you. Take care. Peace.